Hey everyone, ahlan wa sahlan fikum. In today's video, we're going to talk about some really useful verbs and expressions to talk about what you think, know, etc. These expressions are actually some of the most useful things to know to have natural conversation with someone in Arabic, so let's just jump right into it. If you've been watching my videos about Palestinian Arabic, you should already know a few of these. Let's start with the basics. First we have the verb arif, meaning to know. Of course that's the past tense for huwa, so it also just means he knew. Remember that in the present tense we're going to add a be to everything. So ana ba'arif means I know, huwa bi'arif, he knows, anta b'ta'arif, you know. As I've mentioned before though, this is one of those verbs where the active participle is widely used instead of the regular present tense. So you can also say ana arif or huwa arif. Just remember that in the feminine it would be he arifin and the plural would be entu arifin. So you can say either ba'arif or just ana arif. In this case, the meaning is pretty much the same. If you're familiar with grammar terminology though, I would say that arif has more of an imperfect connotation, but I don't think that makes much of a difference which one you use at this juncture, as long as you recognize both. Likewise, in the past tense, it's huwa arif, of course, and ana arifit. In the past tense though, I do think it's better to say huwa kan arif or ana kunt arif, using the active participle. Still, I think it's ultimately a matter of choice. For all of these verbs, it's going to be really important to use inno, meaning simply that blah blah blah. So I know that you're busy would be ba'arif inno enta mashghul. Remember that it's more precise to add the correct suffix to inno. So in this case, it's more precise to say ba'arif innak mashghul. Again though, in spoken Arabic, it's still fine to say inno as a generic word for anyone. So ba'arif inno enta mashghul isn't wrong to say. So you can cheat a little bit while you're still getting used to adding the right suffix naturally. Of course, arif is a form 1 verb. There's also a form 2 version of this root, which is arraf, meaning to make someone know. The main reason to know that is for a very nice expression, which is shu ba'arrifni. It literally means what makes me know, but in English I would translate it as how am I supposed to know? Shu ba'arrifni. So you can say that when someone asks you something about, something you have no idea about. The next verb you should probably know too, which is fihm, meaning to understand. Normally in the present tense it would be ana bafham or huwa bifham. But for this verb it's definitely much better to say ana fahem or huwa fahem, using the active participle. So try to use that if you can. Especially if you want to say I don't understand, you should say mish fahem, or I don't understand you would be ana mish fahem alayk. Likewise, in the past tense, the active participle is used to mean I understood in a more general sense. So you can say kunt fahem or ma kuntsh fahem if you're referring to a general understanding of a situation, whereas the actual past tense of fihim is more likely to be used in direct response to something. So fahimit is like saying I got it, or you can say ma fahimit if you mean like I didn't catch that. Okay, so those are the two verbs that have a few different ways of using them, but the rest are way more straightforward. Next we have a very important verb, fakkar, to think. So ana bafakkar is I think, and ana fakkarit is I thought. Extremely important verb. Notice that it's a form 2 verb, so you have that shadda in the middle. Ana bafakkar, enta bitfakkar, entu bitfakkiru, and so on. It's actually possible to add a suffix to this one directly, so you can say either fakkarit innak mashghul, or you can say fakkartik mashghul, to mean I thought you were busy. Really quickly, the root of fakkar also gives us the word fikra, which means a thought or an idea, which is a really good word to know. Andi fikra, I have an idea. It's also used for an absolutely essential expression, fikra, which is a really useful phrase used in every conversation to say like, by the way, or actually, or in fact. Actually, I think he's busy today. So, by the way, what are you doing tomorrow? Super useful. Okay, now that we have those essentials out of the way, let's do some more exciting ones. You may know the word nafs, meaning mind. So, nafsi would be my mind, nafsu is his mind. What's cool is that when this word goes before a verb though, it's how you say, I'm thinking of doing something. So for example, nafsi aruh an sahbi al-yawm means I'm thinking of going to my friend's place today. So it's a useful way to express your intentions, and you don't actually use the verb fakkar, even though that's how you would express that in English. Now in addition to fakkar, there's another commonly used word to say I think, which is a'taqid. So it's really common to say ba'taqid instead of bafakkar, and you'll definitely sound very legit if you can say this too. Another way to translate this into English would be I believe, like when you say I believe the weather will be nice today, which would be بعتقد إنه الجو راح يكون حلو اليوم. So you can see why it sounds great, because although you can certainly say بفكر, The difference in connotation is that fakir refers literally to the act of thinking, whereas أعتقد expresses something that you've already thought through and have come to have a certain opinion, thought, or idea about it. The next word is kind of the opposite. When you don't really feel strongly about something or don't really care, in English you just say, I guess. In Arabic you say, bazon. Technically it means to assume, but again it's used to say like, I think, but like, I don't know, sure, I guess so, bazon. It's also common to say azon without the B. I don't know why, but yeah, you can say bazon or azon. Of course, the standard form of the verb is zan, but I wouldn't worry about that or about the different conjugations because this verb is really just used to say specifically bazon, meaning I guess or I guess so. There's another really useful expression using this verb, which is ala ma azon, which means as far as I know or as far as I'm aware. So someone asks you about something, it's a useful thing to say, ala ma azon. The last verb for today is again along similar lines, tawagga, meaning to expect. Just as in English, you can use it in a very literal sense or in a more general sense to say I think. As usual in the present tense, that's ana batwagga or ana twagga'at in the past tense. For example, in one of the annotated transcripts that I did recently, one of the characters said زي ما توقعت, as I expected. So you can say هو متأخر زي ما توقعت. He's late, as I expected, as I imagined, as I thought. It has the literal meaning of to expect, but as you can see, it's also pretty versatile. So as you can see, there's a lot of different ways to say I think in Arabic. You can say bafakir, which is the most general, or ba'tagid, if it's something that you've thought through, or you can say bazon if you just want to say I think so or I guess so, or you can say badwagga if it's something you expected. The last word for today isn't a verb, but it goes hand in hand with these expressions. What if you kind of understood something someone said, but you don't really know what they mean, right? Here you can say shu asluk. What do you mean? Asl actually means intention, so it's like saying, what did you intend to say by that? Likewise, asli is a very common expression meaning, what I mean is that da da da. Now the technical verb to mean is ana, which isn't actually used other than to say like this word means that. However, that's where we get yani, which you've probably heard like a million times. As you can see, it would technically mean it means, but it's just like a throwaway word, similar to how in English people say like between words just to fill space. Yani ma ba'rif. I don't know. Everyone says this word so much yani at this point, but I basically say it in English yani. Although, if you did want to ask for the meaning of a word or something like that, you can certainly say shu yani istimar. Technically, instead of shu aslik, you could just say shu yani in response to something someone said, but to be honest, that sounds more like, what's that supposed to mean? It's not rude per se, but it expresses more confusion than saying shu aslik, which is a more neutral way to say, what do you mean? Anyway, that's all I have for today. Relatively simple stuff, but as you can see, if you can master these expressions, you'll quickly start sounding super natural in spoken Arabic, so I highly encourage you to practice them. Anyway, I'll see you next time. اهلا حبايبي وشكرا للجماعه اللي بيحضروا القناه. اذا بدكم تكملوا تشوفوا هالفيديوز اعملوا سبسكرايب، واذا شفتوني مؤخرا تفضلوا روحوا شوفوا الفيديوز الماضيه بالبلاي ليست، وتذكروا اني عملت مصادر لتعلم اللهجه الفلسطينيه تقدروا تلاقوها بالموقع تبعي اللي مكتوب تحت بالديسكربشن، ونشوفكم المره الجايه.